My grandfather was a World War II and Korean War veteran. After the Korean War, he went to work for an army base as a civilian, and he retired as a supervisor. He had a lot of connections. He knew a lot of congressmen and senators and things like that, different diplomats because of his time at the army base. And a lot of people liked him because of his war service, during World War II, right? So when Granddad was in his 80s, he had communication with a couple of different congressmen. I'm not going to say their names, but they used to write back and forth. And these, they were old congressmen. All these guys were from the greatest generation. He wasn't a boomer, clearly, right? So I asked Granddad when he was, in his 80s, and he was cussing about the state of the country. And this wasn't that long ago, about 10 years ago. And I asked him, I said, well, what do you think is wrong with America? Where did we go wrong as a country? What happened? What did you see happen in your lifetime that makes a clear picture and you know what's wrong with this country, right? Granddad didn't even hesitate to tell me. He grew up on a ranch, a working ranch and a farm, and he used to equate a lot of things to ranch life. And he told me like this. He said, son, it's like this. If you take a pasture full of cattle, right? You got a big old herd full of cattle, and you go in there and you start taking out all of your prize bulls. You take all the biggest, strongest, all the healthiest, most powerful bulls away from the herd. And then in a few years, you end up with a very weak, timid, scared herd. A herd full of physical ailments and all kinds of problems because you've taken the good stock out of the herd. And he swore that that's what's wrong with America. See, during World War I, World War II, and Vietnam, our country sent all of the best and the brightest overseas to fight. The boomers, the ones that didn't go fight, right? And I'm not going to assume anything about anybody here, but I got a lot of boomers in my comment section that never enlisted, that were not drafted. And honestly, I wonder every time I see one of you guys, I wonder if you were a draft dodger, or I wonder if you were just too lame to go into the service, or I wonder if you just didn't care enough, right, to go and help all of your friends out that were enlisting and being drafted. Growing up, I actually, my father was a Vietnam veteran, and he didn't have any qualms pointing out the draft dodgers in town. Funny part is, those were always the families that hated the military. Those were always the families that talked bad about the military. And, I had one neighbor that was missing his toe, his middle toe, right in the middle of his foot. And anybody that knows anything about Vietnam knows that there was a whole lot of guys that came back from Vietnam missing that exact toe so that they could get out of the draft, so that they could get out of the woods and the jungles, and they wouldn't have to stand up for their country. But if you don't like my opinion and you don't like what I have to say, do me a favor and go ahead and just unfollow me and move on. Hey, peace and love. I'm out.